Hi everyone, so this video is all about preparation for a long journey on your bike. Now when I say a long journey, if you're riding for, let's say, more than a day or so, or if you're doing sort of particularly long distance. So for example, next week I'm heading to Germany, so me and the lads are riding, spending the night in France and then basically the rest of the time in Germany. So we're going to do about 1,500 miles. And yeah, I was chatting to somebody a while back and they were asking about what you do to your bike. So I'll go through a few points. There's probably a few more that I can't think of or can't remember, but I'll cover what comes to mind. And some of this will apply to specifically riding in Europe, but some of this will also apply to anyone who's, even in the UK, if you're just traveling for a day or two or doing an overnight journey somewhere, and maybe you've never done that before and you're not sure how to prep your bike. So I'll start at the very beginning. So obviously the condition of the bike is really important, and before doing a particularly long journey, especially if you're going for a couple of days or more, you want to make sure that your service schedule is up to date. So in November last year I had the valve clearances checked. Luckily they didn't need any adjusting, and at the same time as the valve clearances I had the spark plugs done, a new air filter, I had a front caliper rebuild and therefore new brake fluid as well. So I know that the brake fluid's good, the plugs, the valve clearances is good, the air filter is pretty fresh. So stuff that you don't necessarily get to every day, the stuff that's inside the engine, that's all done and dusted, so that's all peace of mind. I mean, it was due anyway, but obviously I wanted to make sure that I got it done long before this long trip. Now, if you're going away for a couple of days, you don't necessarily have to get your valve clearances done if they're not due, but it is worth just checking your mileage and checking your service schedule, because the last thing you'd want is to plan a long trip and then you get halfway around your trip and you go over the mileage that something major is due. The chances of something going wrong might be quite slim, but it's just peace of mind at the end of the day. So that was all done in November. While that was being done, I got them to do the oil anyway. It was due, and I normally do the oil myself, but while the mechanic had it doing all those other stuff, I just said, look, just do the oil and filter as well. It's had 2 oil changes since anyway. So that's that. And a couple of other things to check is things like brake pads. So I changed my brake pads probably about 2 months ago. Now I ride quite fast and I do a fair bit of heavy braking, so my pads didn't need changed again, but I've changed them anyway because I had a look at the pads last week and there's about 2-3 mil left on them, which is plenty, but I'm doing 1,500 miles, so with that mileage they're probably going to get down to below 2 mil, and I don't want to risk them going too low, because then it'll just take the fun out of the ride, because you'll always be worried then, you see, that your pads are quite low. So I changed them again yesterday, so I know I got fresh pads in there. The brake discs were also done a couple of months back as well, so I know that they're good and they're well within the thickness. So pads were good, brake fluid's good, discs are good, all the major servicing items were done last year. I also changed the oil again yesterday. Now it wasn't quite due. I normally change my oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. I changed the oil about 1,800 miles ago, so it wasn't necessarily due, but I normally use semi-synthetic oil, but I changed it for fully synthetic oil because this time of year obviously it's quite warm. We're going to be doing lots of riding, and over in Europe the temperatures are quite high at the minute, so fully synthetic oil is better at high temperatures, especially for a high performance bike. So I put for the sake of I think the oil cost me 50 quid. I got a really good deal on it. So for the sake of 50 quid, I put fresh, fully synthetic oil in there. So it's had an extra oil change. Clutch cable. So I've lubed the clutch cable. So every now and again, and this is probably something that a lot of people don't think about or neglect. Now, some bikes have hydraulic clutches, so you won't need to do this. But if you've got a clutch cable, you can buy silicone clutch cable lube or silicone cable lube, and it's worth every now and again maybe just lubing that cable, just to help, you know, the smooth operation of the clutch. So that's been done as well. And then chain and sprockets. So the chain and sprockets were done about 3 months ago, I think. So fresh chain and sprockets on there, so I know that there's plenty of life left in those. And of course tyres. The last thing you want to do is plan a long journey, you know, going away for a few days, and you know, halfway through your trip you realise that your tyres are almost at the wear markers. So, you know, recommended always checking to make sure you've got plenty of life left in your tyres to cover the journey and the distance that you're going to do. So these tyres were new a couple of weeks ago. And I haven't been doing too much riding in the last few weeks, and even since I've been back off my holiday, I've purposely not ridden too much because I want to keep the mileage off the tyres. So I want the tyres to be as fresh and have as much life in them as possible before we start going riding long distances and quite hard on the amazing roads in Germany. And then obviously, you know, let's say the day before you travel, or ideally a couple of days before you travel, just in case you need to fix anything, you're trying to double check everything and go over your whole bike, and just make sure that there's no other niggly problems that you didn't really spot. And then things to take with you. So a couple of things that are recommended on long journeys, but especially things like European trips, if you're going away for a few more days, is take some spare fuses with you. In most cases, in your fuse box, there should be a space for some spare fuses. So make sure that you use those spaces and you take as many spare fuses as you can. Different variety of fuses as well. Basic tools. You don't want to be carrying too many tools because obviously that's extra weight, and it might be quite uncomfortable. But enough tools so you can just quickly tighten something back up. So, you know, a few Allen keys, a screwdriver, you know, something like that. A very, very small, tiny travel size socket set if need be, just so you can adjust something or tighten something up. What we're going to do is, because there's 4 of us traveling, well, 3 of us initially, you know, one of us is going to carry a toolkit, one of us is going to carry some chain lube, 2 of us are carrying long sort of cable locks, so that when we're parked up overnight somewhere, we can park bikes together and lock bikes together, so we don't all have to carry a lock and we don't all have to carry chain loop. So it's worth, if you are traveling away with people, just getting together and arranging, you know, who's going to carry what kit, you know, stuff that you can share along the way. If you're, and yeah, obviously taking chain lube, depending on the mileage you're going to be doing, you know, any more than a few hundred miles, any more than about 200-300 miles, you're probably going to want to lube your chain at some point, so it's worth carrying chain lube. Because we're going to Europe, we need to carry a hi-vis vest as part of our kit. The law is quite strict over there that if you break down on the side of a road, then you have to put, especially on the autobahns or on the auto routes in France, you have to wear a hi-vis vest. So it's worth taking one of those as well. And also taking your insurance documents. Now, you don't necessarily have to take printed copies, but it's just, life's just so much easier. The last thing you want to do is get pulled over by the police, and then you're trying to find, you know, log into your insurance and you haven't got an internet signal for whatever reason. So I always take printed copies of my insurance documents, my breakdown documents. I take my V5, you know, all of those things that prove that the bike is yours and you're insured and you're fully legal. And then the other thing that I've done as well is I've put my baffle back in. Now, I don't normally run with my baffle in because I like the sound without it. But again, some places in Europe, they're quite strict on noise. So I've put my baffle back in, just again to minimize the chance of getting pulled over, you know. The other benefit of putting the baffle back in is, obviously, if you're doing long distances, if you're doing a long motorway journey, which we are, you know, on the outbound journey, we want to get to our destination, so we're doing mostly main roads and motorways. You know, if you're sitting at a long time at motorway speed with a very loud exhaust, it can damage your hearing, you know, and it can, at the very least, get quite annoying with the sound. So having the baffle in as well can just help minimize, you know, noise and just maximize comfort. So that's some basic sort of top tips, folks, of what to sort of check on your bike, what to do on your bike in preparation, as well as any other basic checks that you're going to do. And like I say, if you do the last, you know, the final checks before your journey, should be done ideally a day or two before, so that you've got time to fix anything if you notice any problems, so you're not rushing around or, you know, doing it the night before and then struggling to get a repair on the way. So hopefully that helps, folks. But like I say, not everybody's going to do the European trip. You might just be doing some long distance all day trips or a couple of day trips around the UK, but some of those principles apply as well. And like they say, prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. So it's always better to double check things, and in the build up before a big long trip is just make sure you're on top of everything, because then it minimizes the chance of something going wrong and maximizes the chance that you can enjoy your journey. So hopefully that's been helpful, folks. As always, stay safe. And by the way, tonight or Friday the 4th, or a little bit later on today, I will be announcing the winner of the competition. So the person who has won the quad lock will find out today. So stay tuned into the channel and keep an eye out for that. But as always, folks, if anybody's got any questions, get in touch with me. Any suggestions, get in touch with me. But stay safe and have fun.